watch it. It's a big scorekeeping day. So you have to. It's basically keep your eye on the ball and the running account. Okay, so we're beginning at where are we? Hechidami, right? Yeah. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right, 9 lines from the bottom. So Rabbi Yehuda is obviously. Rabbi Yehuda says in the Mishnah. First, we learned the Mishnah has told us that if the pitcher broke in the public domain and a guy slipped and got dirty in the water, or if he got hurt, the owner is obligated. Rabbi Yehuda continued and he said, if he has intention, that's when he's chayav. It sounds like what? It sounds like he's limiting the obligation that was there in the first opinion. The first opinion was more obligating, and this is less. What was the condition? What do you mean? He said no, only if he's miskaven, only if he has intention. Rabba. So Rabba said, well, it has to be the guy intended to take the pitcher off of his shoulder, and therefore what? And then he tripped on the way down, and he smashed the container into the wall. And he holds what? And he holds, Rabbi Yehuda holds, that a person who slips is called negligent. It's not called an accident. It's called negligent. Amarle Abai said to him, get out of here. You want to tell me what? That intention here is what? He intended to take it down, but he slipped. It was an accident. Well, if he's limiting the obligation, mechlal, that implies the mechayev Rabbi Meir. We're going to assume Rabbi Meir is the Tanakama. Okay, we'll assume Rabbi Meir is the Tanakama. I feel that he holds what? Afilu nifshara, even if the thing just dissolved in his hand. Okay, it fell apart. Why? Because even if it just melted. Why? Because even if it was a complete accident. Okay, Amalei Rabba in. So Rabba says yes. Mechayev Rabbi Meir afilu also be others. That's right. Rabbi Meir would make him obligated, even if he was still holding the handle of the pitcher in his hand. Does that make a difference? The Gemara says, 1 second, get out of here. How can you tell me that Rabbi Meir says even when it's a complete accident he has to pay? Even when it's a complete accident he has to pay. And Rabbi Yehuda says no, only when he's negligent. I'm going to show you that it's not true that Rabbi Meir holds. Now you have to be careful because remember we hold in general by damage by a human being. We say what we say. A person is obligated on accidental damage. We have to differentiate between action done by a person with his body or the creation of an obstacle, etc. The two different things. Simply we say man is obligated for damage that he does with himself, even an accident. Okay, there's a little bit of argument when it's a super accident. I don't know what the words are in English, act of God, which is comical, but there's a super accident. Okay, but essentially, but human beings are obligated for even accidental damage. We're very responsible. But when it comes to making an obstacle, you can't say I accidentally made an obstacle. That's a different story. Even if humans are obligated, but I don't accidentally make an obstacle. That is the argument. But we're going to see here what I'm going to show you. The Reb Meir holds that he's not obligated for accidentally making an obstacle. The way you read the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says it has to be the Rishon to take it down, and therefore what? And he was negligent. But Reb Meir holds no. But Reb Meir holds even if it's completely accidental, the thing just falls apart in his hands, he still has to pay. Amai says, how can you say such a thing about Reb Meir? The person then was really beyond his control. He didn't act under duress that he wasn't responsible for. The Torah exempts all people on acts that are done under duress when it's not their volition. The Siva, as it's written, we know that if a man raped a girl, but the girl was raped against her will, you don't do anything to the girl. Why? Because it was under duress, and we say the same thing everywhere. Every act that a man does under duress is not. The chitem, if you want to say, don't worry, no. It's true. Everybody knows that an act done under duress is not obligated. But maybe you think that this is what we may hold. Since the case over there was talking about a death penalty, okay, how do you, I could say when is it what? When it's a death penalty, okay? So therefore what? Hani mile leaning the tola. That's as far as the death penalty over. Yeah, since the girl was under duress, we don't give her the death penalty. When it comes to damages, no, maybe the law of duress only applies by death penalties. Okay, over here, but maybe by damages, high, we still have to pay. So I can defend it. Don't worry. He says, I'm going to show you. You can't answer me that. It's impossible that anybody. I'm going to show you. It's impossible that even you can't tell me that Reb Meir. You want to tell Reb Meir is unique, and Reb Meir holds that duress doesn't apply to damages, and therefore even if the guy made the pit against his will, so to speak, he would still be obligated. Okay, but Tanya, I'm going to show you it's not true. I'm going to show you Rabbi Meir recognizes the principle of duress when it comes to damage. We learned in a Brisa Nishbra, Kado, below Silko. A guy's pitcher broke in the public domain and he didn't take it away. Nafal Gamala Blamidu, his camel fell down and he didn't stand it up. Rabbi Meir Machayev, okay, Bezik, Rabbi Meir obligates the owner for the damage. The Chachamim and the rabbis who we're going to associate with Rabbi Yehuda, by the way, okay, the rabbis, they say no. The guy's exempt, okay, because from human law. Why? Because the rabbis hold that a person who slips is not negligent. Okay, but he does have to pay from as far as the heavens are concerned. He still has an obligation. The heavens are not going to let him go unless he pays. Why? Because he didn't remove the obstacle when he had a chance. But now there's a negotiation. The rabbis who said that the person who slips is not negligent, they agree with Rabbi Meir. When a person left his very personal item, his rock, his knife, his pack, they left on the roof. Okay, and they fell down under a normal wind and they did damage, which he should have expected. He was obviously negligent. Why? Because then they agreed, because there he was negligent for leaving. If you leave a thing in a place where a normal wind knocks it off, you're essentially letting it be knocked off. Okay, Umoder Meir, the Rabbanan, Rav Meir, who says what? That the guy who slips is responsible. The Malakan Kanan al Gag al Manas when a guy puts up containers onto the roof in order to dry them. And they fell down in an abnormal wind. And they did damage. Rav Meir admits that they're puffy. So you see that Rav Meir accepts the idea that accidental creation of an obstacle is exempt. So he does apply the principle of duress. So now we're stuck. So Elos, you see, so we knock off Rabbi Yehuda. We knock off the original explanation. El Amar Abai says, listen, I'll explain you what the machlokas is between the Tanakama, or we're going to assume Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Yehuda afterwards. He says like this: they're really arguing two different arguments. We'll see why in a minute. We know that there are two. Okay, they're arguing two different arguments. Number one, now I want to explain here because this is very important. Shas Nefila doesn't mean between his hand at the time of falling. Is not between his hand and hitting the ground. Shas Nefila means all the time that all the time that he can't pick it up. Okay, so Shas Nefila would be from the time it leaves his hand till he has an opportunity to pick it up. So Shas Nefila could even be on the ground. Don't think we're gonna have to think of it because how's the guy slip on it while it's in the air? They say Shas Nefila just means the whole time when it falls until he has an opportunity to pick it up. After Shas Nefila means the first time he has a chance to pick it up. Okay, that's very important. Okay, so now they're arguing two cases. Pliga b'Shas Nefila, they're arguing during the time that it's falling, and those until he can pick it up. But Pliga l'Achafila, and they're also arguing about what happens when he had it after the falling, when he had a chance to pick it up. Pliga b'Shas Nefila, the argument, first of all, is during the time that he can't pick it up the whole time it's going down. The Niskal Poshea. Okay, what's the argument? The argument is what we mentioned, whether one who trips is negligent. Different than we said before. Mar, the first opinion, Rabbi Meir, the Tanakama, believes Niskal Poshea. This guy tripped. That's exactly what happened, and he has to pay. Why does he have to pay? Because he was negligent in falling down. Umar, Rabbi Yehuda holds what Sabra Niskal Poshea. So Rabbi Yehuda holds one. That number one, that he's not negligent. Therefore, only if he intended to break it is he going to be obligated. But if he didn't, if it just broke because he slipped, he's not obligated. Okay, and they're also arguing once he had a chance to pick it up. Okay, they're arguing about this argument. The mafkir, okay, and the zakaf. It's when the person abandons ownership for his damaging object. And this is a famous argument, a little different than we had earlier. Rabbi Meir thinks what mafkin is zakaf chayav. He thinks that an obstacle which is ownerless, okay, that the person made ownerless, he's still obligated for, because when the Torah said that a pit is obligated, it was talking about digging a pit in the public domain. He doesn't own it. So therefore, if you abandon the ownership of your obstacle, you still have to pay, because obstacles by definition were things that were also ownerless. Umar Sabah, who holds no, Potter, he holds what? No. The bar of the Torah is where you own the bar. He believes the bar is, for example, where you dug a pit in your domain, and then you ceded your domain to the community, but you didn't cede the bar. So now you have a bore in the public domain, but really the public domain is public, but the pit is really what is private. So therefore, what? So this is the second argument that they're arguing about, and that they're arguing about, and therefore what? So according to Rabbi Yehuda, if a guy abandoned ownership, he's going to be exempt. Okay, so we're going to see in a minute what miskavi means. He has to want to hold on to the ownership. He holds only an owned bar is obligated. I mean, now how do we know that there are actually two arguments? Why do you say that? Usually, and this is a very, very important thing. One of the key crowbars, one of the key limiters that we use in analyzing in the Gemara is the assumption that things have a single cause. The assumption that things have a single cause. And that's why you hear people making excuses all the time why you suspect them. Guys say, well, how come you didn't come? Well, my wife was late and the dog was sick. I know that. Well, no. These guys are going to give me a whole lot of hooey. Well, come on, how come you didn't come? You give 16 reasons. Things don't have 16 reasons. They usually have one reason. Yes, and most things, there's one thing happens. Usually, once in a while, we find a principle called tactic. But generally, our assumption is in a machlokas is about one thing, not about 16 different things. That's the norm. But once in a while, it's clear. And that's why the Gemara challenges us here. Why are you going to say such an outrageous thing? My assumption is, and especially because the Mishnayos are written to educate us and to keep us in line, we don't want a confusion. So having two arguments in one place without telling me is going to be very hard. Okay, so the answer is like this. Don't worry. He says, I'll tell you why. Because we said, how do we know that they're arguing about two? Okay, because it really taught two different cases. It had too many words. Because she told me first, a person was slipped in the water, or he was damaged by the shard. Okay, at first glance, that's the same thing. Who cares? What's the difference? Both of the cases, the guy's obligated because he didn't remove his obstacle. Okay, so it must be what? If it's telling me two, tell me really two genuinely different cases, not two instances. We don't do this in law school. They do it, and in the Gemara we don't give instances of the same case over and over again. When I was quite young, my Rebbe always made me teach. So when I first started teaching, I was 20. So my students were a lot of times twice my age. I had guys who were 40, 50, so much older. So one guy is a super successful lawyer, hotsy-totsy lawyer. So he looks at me, I'm the little kid, so he says to me, you go to law school, they give you 10 examples of the principle and you move on. I said, that's right. The Gemara gives you one. I said, that's why I have to work so hard. We don't waste time. We don't waste your time. Anyway, he was trying to beat me up there, the guy. Anyway, the answer is, we don't accept that. The Mishnah doesn't go on running at the mouth, give me 3 examples of the same thing. If you gave me more than one example, it means that it's a different thing you're teaching me. Do not give me many examples of the same thing. I don't want them. They're confusing. Okay, now. Okay, okay, so I can't say that both cases are 2 instances of the same thing. Isn't this what it really said? They're 2 genuinely different cases. Either the guy slipped in the water at the time of the falling, no, it was before the person could possibly remove it, or the person was damaged by the shards after the person could remove it. Okay, now let's explain that. That's really the argument. And since we said what our Mishnah is arguing in two, Bryce and Ami Batarti will assume also that the Bryce is two, because we're assuming it's all the same Mand Armin. That it's really the rabbis. It's whether it's the rabbis or mayor, Yehuda or mayor. It's all the same. Bishlama. Now the Gemara says 1 second. Bishlama Kado Mishpachas. I can understand what happens when the person's pitcher wasn't removed. And therefore, what? Okay, and the person is obligated. Oh, b'shas nefila knows as far as the pitcher, I can understand whether it's before you could pick it up or while it's falling, or lacha nefila afterwards. Why? Because the guy can pick it up. Ella, okay, but when you come to Gamalo, when you came in the Bryce into the case of his camel, bishlam lacha nefila mishkachas lo. You can tell me what that after it fell. Okay, can I understand what that he is negligent. Okay, why? The mafkir nivloso. Where he abandoned the carcass of the camel. He didn't pick it up. How can you find a person is obligated for his camel falling? You could say what? You could say a guy is negligent in falling. You can't say a guy's negligent in his camel falling. Yeah, camel fell down. Okay. So apparently they maybe the hold is too far away. It's not clearly connected. Good point. I think it's intelligent. Okay. Amar Abacha could go into Abra B'Maya Derech Shirasanaha. So I'll tell you what. I'll tell you how the guy is personally responsible for the animal tripping. He took him where the water, in a place where the water covered up the overflow of the river, covered up the pathway, and by taking him there, so now the person is obligated. The person who led him through it is obligated, is negligent in the falling of the camel. Let me see, 1 second. It's black or white. That's impossible. What's the case? If there was another way to go, posheyahu. Okay, that's called negligence. Nobody's tripping, okay, and therefore the rabbis can't possibly say that he's exempt. Okay, he's absolutely negligent. The rabbis can't say he's exempt. Either lekadaka, if there's no other pathway on the suit, then that's the rest, and it's for sure a mayor can't possibly say he's obligated. I'll tell you the case where the guy's negligent as far as the camel. The iskil. What happened was this guy tripped and the camel tripped on him. He tripped. So he's the tripper. We always said the guy could be responsible for himself tripping. He tripped, and the camel tripped on him. And therefore what? So according to Yehuda, he's exempt. Why? Because Yehuda holds that tripping is accidental and beyond his control. And Meir holds is obligated because tripping is negligent. Okay, now the Gemara said that the argument in the Mishnah we said was also while it fell before you're able to pick it up, and also after you're able to pick it up. Okay, and therefore now we have to understand we have to see that the idea of intending could happen before the falling and after the falling. Okay, so the Gemara says Mafkin Zakav. Did I skip a line before? No, before that I'm saying. Yeah. Okay, right. Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, okay. So now the Mishnah said, okay, so now we have a problem. So you told me, Rabbi Yehuda said what? He's only obligated if he intends. You could say intends to break it, intends this. That's fine. He says, but mafkin azakav my miskavenika. When you're talking about after it fell. So what do you mean? What do you mean he intended? What did he intend after it fell? The answer is Rabbi Yosef. It's where he intended what to own. He intended what to keep holding on to the ownership of the shards, and he did not make them ownerless. Okay, and that's why he's obligated. Intention means he intended to keep owning the pieces, and therefore he's obligated for the damage that they do. Now, the Gemara wants to now try some other possibilities, and we're gonna challenge. Rabbi Lazar says, you know what? He says no. The whole argument between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda is only in the time that it was falling before he could pick it up. I was going to say 1 second. You want to tell me there's only an argument before he could pick it up, but after he picked it up, there's no argument. You want to say after he could pick it up? You want to say what everybody holds it? He said it's exempt. How can you say that? Rav Meir obligates him. Okay, like we learned not from the Mishnah, like we learned in the Brisa. Because in the Brisa it said Nishra Kado, if his pitcher broke and he didn't pick it up, or the camel, etc., he has to pay. So you see that's talking about even afterwards. You see Rav Meir still holds obligated. Elamai, okay, what are you forced to say? Okay, Divrei Kol Chayev, that everybody holds they have to pick it up, it's obligated. Like Rabbanan, get out of here. We saw that the rabbis disagreed the Patre. They say what in the Brisa that even after he could have picked it up, that he's exempt. Elamai b'shas nefila. Okay, so you have to say what? You have to say that when Rabbi Lazar said that the argument is the time of falling means no, not that it's exclusively on the falling, what even at the time of falling. Knows not only after you could pick it up, but even before you could pick it up, the Kamash Ralan. Rabbi Lazar is coming to tell me Abaya the same way that Abaya told me the argument and the two arguments that Abaya outlined in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan says another possibility. He says like this. The whole argument of what is after. And again, we're reading, specifically after he's able to pick it up, but before that, says the Gemara, what are you talking about? According to what you're saying, and before you could pick it up, what are you going to mean? Divya Kol Pater and tell me everybody holds these exempt? Bahami, the Kam Rabbi Yochanan Kaman, and the fact that how could Rabbi Yochanan have said such a thing? Rabbi Yochanan himself says later, the Mishnah says that if a person fell down and his friend fell onto him, that the first guy who fell has to pay. And Rabbi Yochanan said about that case, Lo Tema Masnis and Rabbi Meir he Dominis Kalposhehu, don't think that Mishnah where the guy who fell and the other guy fell and has to pay is according to a mayor who says what, that a guy who falls is negligent. Okay, don't think that that's true. Okay, Mechlal. So you see clearly. Okay, but that's not the point. The application is what the Rabbi Meir Mechayev. Okay, you see what that here he clearly held what that Rabbi Meir holds that a person is that a person is obligated for falling. Okay, LMI. Okay, so you want to tell me what? Oh no, before you could pick it up, and during the time of falling, everybody holds is obligated. Well, make come Rabbi Yochanan comment again. Rabbi Yochanan can't mean that because Rabbi Yochanan himself said, he said, don't think the Mishnah is Rabbi Meir who says that one who fell is negligent, which means what? That it's only Rabbi Meir, Michlal the Patri Rabbanan. So even Rabbi Yochanan holds that the rabbis what? Exempt them. Ella, you have to say what? You have to say that when Rabbi Yochanan said that it's the argument is after falling, well, you have to say what? He really meant to say, like we said before, it's also after falling, not exclusively after falling, but even after you could pick it up. Well, Kamash Malan. And what is he teaching me? The mafka and the zak of the hacha, okay, that this particular abandoning of ownership. What do you mean to say what? Oh, in this case, where the original falling was under duress, okay, particularly here, who the patria abana. Here's where the rabbis say what? Say that if he abandons it, that he is exempt. Why? The anasu, because he's under duress. Okay, and therefore what? And specifically, if a person abandons his obstacles after they fell down under duress, okay, that's when they said he's exempt. Or Meir says no, since he holds that falling is negligent. Okay, this person is abandoning after what? After negligence. Okay, but in general, don't think that the rabbis hold that he's always exempt. If a person just abandoned his obstacle, let's say a guy threw something down in the public domain and abandoned it, okay, or he abandoned, let's say, a pit in the public domain, that's not included. Mechayve, and the rabbis would also still hold what? That he is obligated, because they would believe that the Torah indeed said what? That even an ownerless pit in the public domain is exempt. No, we said Rabbi Yehuda would be like the rabbis.
Actually owned it.
Yeah, well, it depends. No, because we associate the rabbis in the price of it. We associate the rabbis in the price of it.
On that point,
yeah, against Rabbi Meir. Yeah, I think so. Okay, Itmar, it was taught. Mafkir Nizakav, okay, if a person abandoned his things that he owned, okay, after that he purposely left in the public domain, this is an argument. Now, be careful. Now we're going to Amorai, okay? Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Lazar, okay? We know that there was an argument with Rabbi Lazar, but we didn't identify who said what. Chadam Archayed, one said what? That he's obligated. Sounds like what? That even an ownerless obstacle person is obligated. But Chadam Arpater, one said exempt. No, that only an owned pit is obligated. Lema Manda Mechayev. Shall I say the one who says that he's obligated for abandoning it knows that even an abandoned obstacle has to pay? Rabbi Meir. That must be that's like Rabbi Meir who said what? Who said that like Rabbi Meir who we identified and said what? That an ownerless pit in the public domain is obligated. Umanda Patar, whoever said that he's exempt, Rabbanan. Here, you see, he's here exactly. And the one who abandoned it holds like the rabbis who believe what? That the Torah only obligated a person who didn't abandon his pit. It has to be that he ceded his property to the public domain, but the pit he remained his. So it's only an owned pit, okay? And if he would have abandoned it, then he'd be exempt. I'll leave it to Rameir. So the Gemara says, one second. I'll leave it this. The Gemara says, no, I don't have to say what that they are siding up. And I told you it's always a problem because we don't want two Amoraim to take personal sides against Tanoim. They can pass anything, but they shouldn't be taking personal sides. Gemara says, no. I'll leave it to Rameir Kula Amalopigi. According to Rameir, okay, nobody's arguing. Everybody knows that Rameir obligates, okay, because he holds that what? That if a person abandons things after it fell down, okay, so anybody, that they all agree. They all know that if a person abandoned after it fell down, that he put down, that he is obligated. Keep legally Rabbanan. They're having an argument according to the rabbis, okay? What do you mean? Well, even though the rabbis said exempt, we don't know what's the case here. Why? Mandapatar Rabbanan, the one who said exempt, it's like the rabbis. The rabbis hold what? That the Torah obligated a person for an ownerless pit. Okay, Manda Mechayev, but the one who says obligated, even though he's going according to the rabbis, he says, Ana da Amri Afilu Rabbanan. Even though the rabbis say exempt, I obligate according to the rabbis. Ad kan lo patri Rabbanan like we said before. When did the rabbis exempt? You thought the rabbis are all the way in the extreme, then an ownerless pit is obligated. Nah, it's only an ownerless pit that became ownerless after what? After the person fell down. Mishum the anasu, because they hold that falling in what is the rest. I hold even according to the rabbis. The rabbis never said 100% that every ownerless thing is obligated is exempt. Only ownerless after what? After duress. But I hold the what? That one who abandons his property not after a duress falling will also be obligated, even according to the rabbis. Now, okay, that's what he said. Now we don't know who said what, so we want to use a logical analysis, okay, or analysis to figure out who said what. Now, it's by the way, why do we want to know who said what in general? Yeah. You know, yeah, okay, good. Thanks for asking. Why do we want to know who said what? So, okay, there's a spiritual reason why we want to know. You understand? Because here a person that had the merit to reveal Torah in the world, there's a spiritual reason. The person should be mentioned, that he's the one who got to do it. But there's a practical reason why we always want to know who said what. And that is because there's a thing called shita. And you'll see it often in the Gemara. What shita means? Means that there is a system. What does that mean? If I want, it's very important to me to know everything that a certain rabbi said. Why? Because if I know everything he said, I go, oh, wait a minute. This is because this and this go together. This and this go together. I can analyze it. I can understand. If I know the totality of a person's legal teachings, parts where it's not clear will become clear. So it's very important to know who said what all the time. You understand? Because if I know, I have a wealth of proofs and disproofs of various points by comparing and contrasting what he said with what he said. Because I'm always going to assume that a wise man is going to be consistent with himself. You understand? So it's a very, very important thing. So we desperately want to know who said what. So even though the truth is that in the court of judgment, we don't care who said what. In other words, that what? I don't mean in terms of tradition. Don't misunderstand me. But in the court of argument, the argument has to stand on its own. I don't care who said it. It doesn't matter. Here, the greatest rabbi of the generation can be questioned by a 5-year-old kid. Said, I had a friend. He was the president of his Reform synagogue. He became afterwards a completely observant guy. His children, grandchildren, everybody's thank God is Torah observant. But when he was the president of the Reform synagogue, so the Reform rabbi invites him. This was years ago. The Reform rabbi invited him to come to the convention where they're going to vote on allowing a homosexual Reform rabbis. They're going to have a vote about it. So my friend, who's the president of the shul, of the Reform shul, he said, Rabbi, it says in the book that you can't do it. It says it's here. He says there's the thing. He says it says in the book. He's reading the Bible. He says it says in the book you can't do this. You can't. There's no way to override that. That's what it says.
What was the rabbi's answer?
Yeah.
What was his answer? The rabbi's answer.
We don't always.
The answer was that the president became observant. That was the answer. He's the president. I'm just saying. But he said, look, it says the book. Yeah, if you're the God Lador, a little kid can say, but Rabbi, doesn't it say 3 and not 2? Yeah, that's not. So we're not looking. It's not the thought. We're not looking at the person who spoke. We're looking at the argument. However, in terms of tradition, that's a different story. Knowing who passed down what, that's a different story. That's another parsha. But in general, nevertheless, we want to know who said what. It's very important to us. Why? Because I can use this data of knowing everything that a person said and comparing one thing with another, and that's tremendously fruitful for our Torah learning and for the halacha, for a million things. Okay, so we're going to say no. So we want to see. Let's see. Can I solve it? I know one said yes, one said no. Can I figure out who said what? Okay, so the Gemara says, "Tistayim do Rav Elazar hu the Omar." Okay, chayv. You know what? It must be that it's Rav Elazar who said that according to the rabbis that he is obligated, that he's obligated. In other words, what? That once it's not under duress that he's obligated, and the Torah does obligate a person who owns his thing. Torah obligate a person. The person does obligate a person who does not own his bar. Rabbi Elazar, Mishum Rabbi Shmuel, because he said, Rabbi Elazar himself said, Shnei Devar Mena B'Shusha Shalom, a famous rule in the Torah. There are 2 things that don't belong to a person, but the rabbi considered it as if they belong to him. What are they? The pit in the public domain. Even though the guy doesn't own it, the Torah, so to speak, makes it his to obligate him, but it's really not his. So you see clearly he holds that the Torah obligates a pit that is ownerless. Okay. And also chametz. Here, since chametz, when the time comes that chametz is forbidden, forbidden to have benefit, etc. So then it's not yours, nevertheless. So why do I transgress by having it? If I can't get any use out of it, it's not my it's not my domain. It's the Torah puts it in your domain. So we see clearly what that Rebbe Lezer holds, that even when a person abandons his obstacle, that he still is obligated, the Torah obligated a bore that's completely in the public domain. Whereas this time, indeed, you can conclude it. It's a good analysis. When I was quite young, my brother and I were dealing with a shaila, who that in this case, sometimes the problem with the shaila, you don't know what the halacha is. In this case, we were confident that we knew what the halacha was, but we were having trouble determining the facts of the case. The facts of the case were difficult to do. So we sat down and we simply did a simple analysis, and by disqualification, we figured the facts have to be the following, and therefore we were going to say the halacha was this. But we were young, and I was scared, you understand, because it was a long analysis that we did, and I wasn't sure, that we could rely on ourselves. So we went to Israel Yaakov Fisher, also on the Gedolei Ador, and he was an incredibly beautiful person, a very funny person also, hysterically funny, and a beautiful, beautiful human being. Any case, and he could be dry as could be. So I went there and I brought my brother, so that we wouldn't, that we would back each other up and make sure we knew what we were talking about. And I gave him a 5-minute talk, about this what happened, but we don't know the facts. So we thought this, but if that happened, this could happen, this would happen, therefore this. If we determine that this must be the facts, and if we apply the halacha this way, is this okay? He said, Cain. That was it. One word. Yeah, one word. He was a very funny man. He was a very beautiful man. He was the busiest man in the world. You could barely get to him, and most of the time, you only got to talk to his wife. It's hard to get to him. And my first wife was terminal, really, and it's traditional. You change a name. But in Yerushalayim, they're very careful about changing names. They have a system that they believe names have to match up for the marriages. There's a whole thing with matches, etc. So people would often go to people like Rabbi Fisher, even if they're going to change a name. There are names that we change to traditionally because they're life names and good names, but you want to make sure that you're not destroying the unity of the couple. So they're very careful about the names that they give. So that time, and you never could get in anything. Not only did Rabbi Fisher sit down with us, his wife came, and she sat with my wife, and he sat with me. It was the most beautiful thing in the world, as if and he'd had no time, as if he had all the time in the world. He sat and went over this name and that name, and said, "What about this? Could this be good?" It was the sweetest thing, and he was a giant of Torah, and the sweetest. All the great people I ever met were Swedish. I never met a great rabbi who wasn't the sweetest and the kindest. Never. In all my experience, and I had the privilege. I'm a very fortunate person. I had the privilege of meeting Mamish Dolei Ador, more than meeting them. I work with them, you understand. And I never found one that wasn't a paragon of incredibly beautiful character. I never saw one. Never. And when I did, it turned out that the person wasn't who they thought they were. When I did not see a paragon of character, the person wasn't who people thought they were. I saw it over and over again. Over and over. Okay. One second, did Rav really say what? That an ownerless pit is obligated from the Torah? And when the person would abandon it? Didn't Rabbi Elazar say the opposite? Didn't we learn the Tani? Now, this is a very interesting case. I just want to explain. Here, a pit is a funny thing. You're obligated for digging a pit. Let's just figure it out. A pit. Now, here, if you dig a pit and you cover it, is the pit gone or not gone? Did it disappear? Didn't it disappear? What if I cover a pit and uncover it? Is it a new pit, an old pit? What if I take a pit and fill it up with dirt? Is it a new pit and then uncover it? So we're gonna have to see what's called a pit. Okay, now we learn the following. There is a trash pile. Okay, in the public domain, and a guy digs it up and moves it from one place to another. And somebody else was damaged on the newly placed trash pile. The person who dug it up and moved it from one place to the other is obligated. Okay. Why is that? Okay. Why? Because when he lifted it up, he acquired it. It became his, and he's obligated for its damages. Rav Elazar said, "Lo shanu." When we said that he's obligated, what? It has to be that he intended to take possession of those things when he turned it over, and he didn't abandon it. But if he didn't intend to take ownership, Potter, he is exempt. Alma, from here you see clearly what there was a whole lot. Rafkin is Pater. You see what if you abandon it? The Pater holds only a bar that has an owner, and not a bar not. Now you just a minute ago you told me Rabbi was the one who understood that an ownerless pit is obligated, and the only time it's not is when it was ownerless after duress. Rabbi said no. He says, no, you make a mistake. Really, what we said originally is true. Rabbi is the one who holds that an ownerless pit is obligated. Why did he demand here ownership? Here's what happened. The guy dug it up and put it right back in its place. He dug it, he put it right back. Okay, he didn't take it any other place. And since the original obstacle remains where it was, it's not considered now that when he lifted it up that he dug a new pit. And a new pit. And therefore, Elazar says what? That it's where so in order for him to be obligated, okay, it has to be what in order for him to be obligated, since it's the same old pit, in order for the obligated, he has to have intended to acquire it. But really, in general, even owning this pit is fine. But here, since it's the same pit, he didn't do it. He has to intended to own it, and then it's like he dug a new pit. Ravina. So Ravina says now, this is always a problem. He says, listen, let me give you an analogy. Both saying, don't give analogies. Don't give analogies. If you don't have to, don't, because you're vulnerable. If you're arguing, you make an analogy, you're likely to lose because somebody will discompare. Don't do it. Don't do it unless you have to do it. If you want to argue well, don't make analogies. Just argue your point. My Rebbe, my blessed memory, used to yell at us all the time. He said, don't do it. He said, I'll knock you off. Just say your point. Analogies make you vulnerable. If you must, you must. But if you don't have to don't make comparisons. If your argument stands on its own, make your argument on its own. Don't do it. I'm telling you, don't do it. Especially with your wife. Especially with the wife. They'll knock you off. Okay. Yeah.
If you're wrong to begin with.
Yeah. Always. My wife says, if a man says something in a forest and nobody hears it, is it still wrong? Amar Ravina says, Mashal, he says, I'm going to give you a comparison what this means, but you put it back in the same place. It says, Mashal the Rabba, he says, but what I said, what's it like? The Motzi Bar Magula, let's say a guy found an uncovered pit, which is dangerous. The Kiso, then he covered it. The Chazvi Gilo, and then he uncovered it. Okay. So even though he uncovered the pit, it's not considered a new pit. Okay. And the same thing he's saying over here. When the guy just digs it up and puts it right back in the same place, it's not a new pit. Amalei Marzutra, Breder of Mari Ravina says, no. So Midami says that is not a good comparison. I'm sorry, he says. Awesome. He says over there, okay, where the guy covered it. Okay, like you said, okay, my solution. He never undid the original digging of the pit. Nothing has changed. The hole is not undone. Okay, so I could say what it's the same thing. But here, when he lifts up the pile of dirt, he's taliklu my solution. The pit disappears. The pit is a pile of dirt, a pile of trash. When you lift it up, the pile disappeared. The obstacle disappears. It's not a good comparison. Although you want to make comparisons, this is the comparison. Let's say a guy found an uncovered pit. Utamama, and he filled it up with dirt, and then he dug it out again. There, what these talik le'maisarisha. There, he truly undid. He completely nullified the original action. And now what? And now the pit says, now this does not mean what it looks like. It doesn't mean it's in his ownership. We're specific, right? He just means here that he's responsible. He doesn't mean that it's his. Hello, Ravashi. Okay, so Ravashi says what? He says. So then I got a problem. So why is it Rollos has said that he has to want to own it? Okay, Ravashi says, I'll tell you what. Okay, what it was, he didn't lift it up or outwards more than 3. He did move it up or away. Okay, 3 tefachim. Okay, right? Because that kind of lifting is not called a destruction of the pile. If you didn't move it for 3, you didn't do anything. It's still there. You didn't. Usually, if you lift it up, you undid the original one. Here, what? If you lift it up less than 3, move it less than 3, you didn't undo it. And therefore, what? And therefore, since you didn't take it away, you didn't rebuild it. And therefore, I can't make it obligated unless he specifically intended to acquire it. If he intended to acquire it, so then even though he lifted up only a little bit, he is obligated. The language of Rashi, whether it says habot or chabot, is a big argument, and I'm not going to get involved in that. My doctor Lazar. Okay, now 1 second. The oak may the kagon shachar lefach mishlosha. 1 second. Why should Rabbi Lazar have had to talk about what where he lifted up less than 3, the time of the king is common this coastball, and what and the whole reason what because but he it didn't automatically acquire, but he intended to acquire it. I'm covers the ghost boy, and if he didn't intend to acquire it, low, you won't be obligated. Low, you could simply have set it up. The Malamishlosh, he lifted up more than 3. The Alpha Gafta on his common this coastball. But even though he didn't intend to, he's obligated. Why do you need to get into a whole legal thing? He intended, he didn't intend. He says, I'll tell you why he had to say that. Masnis and Kashisa, because the mission was bothering him. My ear, Yahafach, why did it talk about what? Digging it up. Okay, listening, Higbia. Why didn't it write lifting it up? Shmami Nof, and the fact that it write digging, okay, overturn digging up, as opposed to lifting, it must be, tell you what, it must be what? Kol Hafach Lamata Mishalosh. When you say Hafach, you really mean, by definition, you just overturned it a little bit, less than 3, and that's why I explained it. Okay, now, and I think from there, I think this is a good stopping point.
We should go to the Mishnah.
No,
Mishnah's
I know, but I think this is a good stopping point. I think it's a good stopping point. Yeah, sorry. I think it's a good stopping point. I'll continue. Okay, Rabosai, have a wonderful day.
Have a wonderful week, everybody.
Have a safe trip.
Amen. Amen.
$1.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. I'll give $1. I'll lend you $1. I'll lend you $1.
I think your next year should be on marriage.
I have a lot to say about marriage.
Here.
Thank you. It's gonna be, I prove to my wife men are better than women. Here's my proof. I say to my wife, who's smarter, women or men? She says, women. I says, and who do women marry, women or men? She says, men. I say, you see, men are better.
That's excuse me. If they had a choice, but the Torah says they have to marry men. So your analogy.
I know. Just that's a joke.
Fasina says that women are from a higher source.
Women are also charity.
Yeah.
And they know that men have a mitzvah, Peru.
So they marry him. That's a good
So they marry him. They're doing them a favor, and now the man is eternally obligated.
It's true. It's true. Stop. I've told you before. Yeah.
I'll throw this away for you.
Right.
How you feeling, Bobby?